ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं गुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 21, Conversation between Manu and Kardama. So we are in the section where Kardama Muni is receiving darshan of the Supreme Lord. Text 12. जात हर्षोत्पतत् मूर्धना क्षितौ लब्ध मनोरथः गर्भिस्थो अभृत प्रीतः स्वभावात्मा कृतांजलि.
When Kardama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. Purport: the realization of personal form of the Lord is the highest perfectional stage of yoga. In the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where yoga practice is described, this realization of the personal form of the Lord is called the perfection of yoga. After practicing the sitting postures and other regulative principles of the system, one finally reaches the stage of samadhi, absorption in the Supreme. In the samadhi stage, one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his partial form as Paramatma or as he is. Samadhi is described in authoritative yoga scriptures, such as the Patanjali Sutras, to be a transcendental pleasure. The yoga system described in the books of Patanjali is authoritative, and the modern so called yogis who have manufactured their own ways, not consulting the authorities, are simply ludicrous. The Patanjali yoga system is called Ashtanga Yoga. Sometimes impersonalists pollute the Patanjali yoga system because they are monist. Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the supersoul and sees him. If the existence of the supersoul and the individual is admitted, then the impersonalist theory of monism is nullified. Therefore, some impersonalist and void philosophers twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga process. According to Patanjali, when one becomes free from all material desires, he attains his real transcendental situation, and realization of that stage is called spiritual power. In material activities, a person engages in the modes of material nature. The aspirations of such people are: number one, to be religious; number two, to be economically enriched; and number three, to be able to gratify the senses; and the last, number four, to become one with the Supreme. According to the monist, when a yogi becomes one with the Supreme and loses his individual existence, he attains the highest stage called Kaivalya. But actually, the stage of realization of the personality of Godhead is Kaivalya. The oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual And that in full spiritual realization, one can understand what he is. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Kaivalya, or in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is freed from material desires and fixed in spiritual realization of the self and the super self, that is called Chitta Shakti. In full spiritual realization, there is a perception of spiritual happiness. And that happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita as the supreme happiness, which is beyond the material senses. Trance is described to be of two kinds, sampraj, samprajnata and asamprajnata, or mental speculation and self realization. In samadhi or asamprajnata, one can realize by his spiritual senses the spiritual form of the Lord. That is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. According to Patanjali, when one is fixed in constant realization of the supreme form of the Lord, one has attained the perfectional stage as attained by Kardama Muni. Unless one attains this stage of perfection, beyond the perfection of the preliminaries of the yoga system, there is no ultimate realization. There are eight perfections in the Ashtanga Yoga system. One who attained them can become lighter than the lightest and greater than the greatest, and he can achieve whatever he likes. But even achieving such material success in yoga is not the perfection or the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is described here. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the super soul, or Krishna and Krishna's devotees, and when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. If through the yoga system one wants to attain the stage of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, but is attracted instead of attainment of some material power, then he is deterred from proceeding further. Material enjoyment is encouraged by bogus yogis, has nothing to do with the transcendental realization of spiritual happiness. Real devotees of bhakti yoga accept only the material necessities of life absolutely needed to maintain the body and soul together. They refrain from completely they refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. They are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations, provided they can make progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
So now Kardama Muni, he finally realized that the personality standing in front of him is the supreme personality of Godhead in person. Till now, for last 10,000 years, he was meditating on the Lord, performing different types of devotional service, Kriya Yogena. But now he saw the same personality, in front of him. The object of his meditation became the object, personality directly standing in front of him. The same thing we will see in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj also. Dhruva Maharaj, he was performing very severe austerity. And when he opened his eyes, suddenly he saw the personality on whom he was meditating within the heart appeared in front of him. Right. So, and then he became greatly satisfied with because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell at the feet of the Lord, Dandavat, and folded his hands, Kritanjali, and began to offer prayers to the Supreme Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that realization of the personal form of the Lord is the perfection of yoga. We know that the Lord can be realized in three ways. Vadanti tattvavidas, tattvam yajnanam advayam, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti shabdate. So these are the three ways of realizing the Supreme Lord, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. But the highest realization is Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So this is very important. Somebody who attains in Ashtanga Yoga, the final stage of Ashtanga Yoga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Samadhi. So at the Samadhi stage, one can have the darshan of only Paramatma, feature of the Lord. But in case of Kardama Muni, along with Ashtanga Yoga, he was also engaged in Bhaktya Kriya Yogena. Because he was engaged in direct devotional service, he had the further higher realization that is of Bhagavan. And Srila Prabhupada says, actually the yoga system, which is in the books of the Patanjali, is a very authoritative yoga system. Patanjali, when he writes about yoga, Patanjali yoga is unfortunately right. So Patanjali's authoritative Ashtanga yoga is, Prabhupada says, is sometimes polluted by the impersonalist to convey people that it is like becoming one with the Lord. But Patanjali never talks about becoming one with the Lord. Patanjali describes that, Prabhupada says, this is how Patanjali's philosophy is twisted to suit their own way. And this is how Patanjali's philosophy of Ashtanga Yoga is polluted and twisted by the impersonalist. According to Patanjali, he very clearly writes that when one practices this niyama, asana, pranayama, ityadi, what happens? One becomes free from all material desires. So when one becomes free from all material desires, naturally the spiritual desires will arise. And that is the transcendental situation that he calls. Material activities, they are focused on dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So people want to do some dharma so that they will get artha. This was the previous times. Nowadays, people don't have to do dharma also to get artha. Because artha and dharma, they are greatly bifurcated now. One can just simply earn artha without being dharmic as well. Previously, it was not the case. Dharma led to artha, artha led to kama, satisfaction of the desires, and kama, after trying to satisfy the desires for a prolonged period, person used to become dejected and he will look for moksha, the moksha from the cycle of birth and death. So according to monists, when a yogi becomes one with the Supreme, that is called as moksha according to them, or they will call it as kaivalya. But according to Patanjali, kaivalya means full realization of the personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada writes very beautifully that just like when you realize the personality of Godhead, in that light, you will realize yourself also and your relationship with the Supreme Lord. So realization of the Supreme Lord, realization of the soul, and the relationship between the Lord and the soul comes simultaneously, just like Prabhupada says, just like when there is a sunrise. You will see the sun. In the light of the sun, you will see yourself and you will see your duty towards the sun. Right? By the light of the sun, you don't become sun. Sun remains sun, you became you remain you, and you realize who is the sun and who you are, and you can see yourself and you can perform the activities within the world. Similarly, by realization of the Supreme, one will realize the self also. And what is that Swarupa? Jivera Swarupa hai, Krishnera Nityadas. Right. So Patanjali called this as a Kaivalya. And he called the spiritual power one will receive as a Chit Shakti. And Srila Prabhupada further explains that there are two types of the trance. There is the trance which is coming out of the mental speculation, and the trance which is coming out of the spiritual realization. So according to Patanjali, when one is constantly fixed in the realization of the Supreme, then he is called as Kaivalya stage, or he is called as attained the perfectional stage. And this stage of Samadhi, which is attained by Patanjali, which is proposed by Patanjali, was attained by Karadama Muni. But that Samadhi is direct realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Further, Prabhupada says Ashtanga Yoga comes with a lot of powers. Yoga Siddhi. What are the Siddhis? These are like Anima, Mahima, Laghima, Prapti, Kamya Vashaita. So there are 8 types of Siddhis. One can become lighter than the light. One can simply start walking from, one can start fly in the air. How? Because he has become lighter than the air. The law of gravity will not act on him. One can become heavier than the heavy. One can, Kama Vashaita means one can just get anything from anywhere he wants. Say you want to have Ratnagiri Hapus mango. Right. So you can just stretch your hand, your hand will reach to Ratnagiri or Dapoli, and you can get mango from there. Right. So this is Kamya Vashaita. Prabhupada says when he was in Kumbh Mela, when he was a young man, he approached one yogi and he said that, yogi said, I can get you khajur from Afghanistan. And Prabhupada said, yeah, get me some khajur from Afghanistan. And he just raised his hand, and from nowhere he got khajur. So these siddhis are there, but that is not the perfection. Many times the yogi may get diverted. Prabhupada uses a beautiful word, detoured from the process of further realization, and he will get caught up in the exhibition of the siddhis. Right. Further, Srila Prabhupada writes, but the ultimate goal is not to attain this perfectional siddhis, but the ultimate goal is to have darshan of the Lord and to be constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. And this was attained by Kardama Muni. And this, why? Because Kardama Muni was also performing devotional service along with Ashtanga Yoga. So Ashtanga Yoga in itself can maximum reach up to the Paramatma realization of the Lord. But Kardama Muni, because he was also practicing devotional service, he could reach the Bhagavan realization of the Lord. And now the same Lord is standing in front of him face to face. Prabhupada writes, real devotees of Bhakti Yoga accept only the material necessities of life absolutely needed and refrain from the exaggerated material sense gratification. Right? So this is the mood of a devotee. Smara nitya nityata. That, devotee is not interested in trying to exploit the world, that vritti of bhog lena hai. I just want to, people just want to really party harder. So devotee's mood is not like that. Devotee is do the needful, save the time, and focus that time in the service of the Supreme Lord. And this is how, and Prabhupada says they are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations, all kinds of tapasya, to make the progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. Now we come to text 13. From text 13 to 22, we are in the third section of this chapter, that is prayers by Kardama Muni. Rushiruvāca Jushtvam Batadyākhila Satvarāshe Sansiddhyakshnoस्तव darshanānah Yad darshanam janma viridya siddhin Rasha sate yogin yoga rudha yoga. Translation?
Translation. The great sage Kardama said, O supreme worshipful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existences. Though many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described here as the reservoir of all goodness and all pleasure. Unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, there is no real pleasure. Therefore, when one's body, mind, and activities are situated in the service of the Lord, one is on the highest perfection stage of goodness. Kardama Muni says, your Lordship is the reservoir of all that can be understood by the nomenclature of goodness, and by our experiencing you face to face, the perfection of sight has now been attained. These statements are the pure devotional situation for a devotee. The perfection of the senses is to engage in the service of the Lord. The sense of sight, when engaged in seeing the beauty of the Lord, is perfected. The power to hear, when engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, is perfected. The power to taste, when one enjoys by eating prasada, is perfected. When all the senses engage in relationship with the personality of Godhead, one's perfection is technically called Bhakti Yoga, which entails detaching the senses from material indulgence and attaching them to the service of the Lord. When one is free from all designated conditional life and fully engages in the service of the Lord, one's service is called Bhakti Yoga. Kardama Muni admits that seeing the Lord personally in Bhakti Yoga is the perfection of sight. The exalted perfection of seeing the Lord is not exaggerated by Kardama Muni. He gives evidence that those who are actually elevated in yoga aspire in life after life to see this form of the personality of Godhead. He was not a fictitious yogi. Those who are actually on the advanced path aspire only to see the eternal form of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Now, Kardama, Rushiruvāca, the great sage Kardama said, my dear worshipful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, the reservoir of all the existence. And this perfection can be attained through many successive births by deep meditation by the advanced yogis. Like we see, Panthastu, Koti Shata Vatsara Sampragamyo, Vayo Rathapi Manaso, Muni Pungavana. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the Supreme Lord is described here as Akhila Sattva Rashi. Akhila Sattva Rashi means he is the reservoir of all goodness and all pleasure. And therefore, when one's body, mind, and activities are all situated in the service of the Lord, then one is called as, then actually one is situated in fully in the mode of goodness. And that's why you will see that Tridandi, sannyas, that Tridandi sannyas stands for this. One's body, mind, and activities, they are all engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. And by this, the devotee will experience the Lord face to face, eye to eye, and which is perfection of the sight. So the real eyes, they are always looking for the most pleasurable object to look at. Why? Because the eyes have already seen the spiritual object, the Supreme Lord. And now they are trying to find out the same beauty in the material world. Some material beauty will satisfy for some time, then again it becomes pale. People are always in search of a new hero, new heroine, like that. Because the material beauty fades away. And the eyes, they will never be satiated because they will always look for the beauty. And therefore, one should take darshan of the Supreme Lord, who is also called as Nayana Mahotsavam. Nayana Mahotsavam means Nayana Abhirama, Nayana Mahotsava. These are the names, right? Why? Because that is really the festival to the eyes. One can come to the temple and take the beautiful darshan of the Lord, and that is the real festival to the eyes. What is the festival to the ears? Hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord is festival to the ears. Otherwise, we will hear some glory of somebody, but these glories will fade away. The same person may do some unglorious activity later. People are fond of some cricketer, very cool-headed captain, this, that. But then next match, he will be behaving so recklessly, fighting with the umpire in such a uncivilized way. One will think, "Arey, I was fan of this guy, and he is so back to basic, so instinctive this person is." So the glories, the material world, and the glories of material people eventually fade away. But that is not the case with the glories of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the ultimate perfection of the ears to hear glories of the Supreme Lord. Ultimate perfection of the tongue is to taste the prasadam. And this is how one can, Prabhupada says, one can engage all the senses in the service of the Lord. So 2 shlokas here. Ambarish Maharaj exactly performed this. Savai mana krishta padara vindayor vachamsi vaikuntha gunanu varnane karau harer mandira marjana dishu shrutim chakar achyuta satkathodaye mukundalingaalaya darshane drishau tadbhritya gatre sparshanga sangamam natu kama kammeya sa uttama shloka janashrayarati. This is the way how to attain rati in devotional service at the lotus feet of the Lord by engaging. Narad Muni writes it very simply, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. Prabhupada says, one has to be freed from all designated conditional life, Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam, and fully engage in the service of the Lord. And such service is called as Bhakti Yoga. Now sometimes people may say, oh, because Kardava Muni is a Bhakata na Prabhuji. And all this Bhakata means they will always exaggerate. So this is, the arop on the Bhakta is that they will exaggerate. So Kardava Muni says, no. The exalted perfection of seeing the personality of Godhead is not exaggerated by Kardava Muni. He gives the evidence. And what is the evidence? The evidence is that there are many yogis, lifetime after lifetime, they will perform tapasya so that one fine day they will have darshan of the Supreme Lord. Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. So the attaining, the sight of the Supreme Lord is not, the fortune is not exaggerated, but this can happen only to the advanced devotee after perfection of the yoga. Text 14. Yema yayate ritamedasastat padarvindam bhavasindhu potam Upasate kamanavaya tesham rasisha kaman niraye piyesyuhu. Translation.
Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane science. Only persons deprived of their intelligence by the spell of the deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasures of the senses, which even persons rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, there are two kinds of devotees, those who desire material pleasures and those who desire nothing but service to the Lord. Material pleasures can be attained even by hawks and dogs, whose condition of life is hellish. The hog also eats, sleeps, and enjoys sensual life to the full of extent, and it is also very satisfied with such hellish enjoyment of material existence. Modern yogis advise that because one has senses, one must enjoy to the fullest extent like cats and dogs. Yet one can go on and practice yoga. This is condemned here by Kardama Muni. He says that such material pleasures are available for cats and dogs in a hellish condition. Lord is so kind that if so-called yogis are satisfied by hellish pleasures, he can give them facilities to attain all material pleasures they desire. But they cannot attain the perfection stage attained by Kardama Muni. Hellish and demoniac persons do not actually know what is the ultimate attainment in perfection, and therefore they think that sense gratification is the highest goal of life. They advise that one can satisfy the senses and at the same time, by reciting some mantra and by some practice, can cheaply aspire for perfection. Such persons are described here as Hatha Medhasa, which means those whose brains are spoiled. They aspire for material enjoyment by perfection of yoga or meditation. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated by the Lord that the intelligence of those who worship the demigods has been spoiled. Similarly, here too, it is stated by Kardama Muni that one who aspires after material enjoyment by practice of yoga has spoiled his brain substance and is full number one. Actually, the intelligent practitioner of yoga should aspire for nothing else but to cross over the ocean of nescience by worshipping the personality of Godhead and to see the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord is so kind, however, that even today persons whose brain substance is spoiled are given the benediction to become cats, dogs, or hogs and enjoy material happiness from sensual life and sense gratification. The Lord confirms this benediction in Bhagavad Gita. Whatever a person aspires to receive from me, I offer him as he desires.
Yeah. So the Kardama Muni further began to pray. Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take across the ocean of material nescience. Unfortunately, the people who are Hatamedhasaha means those whose brains are spoiled, Prabhupada writes. Okay. Hatamedhasaha. Medha is brain or the intelligence. Hata means they are defeated, the lost. Right. They will aspire for some trivial, momentary pleasure of the senses, which is available even to the cats and dogs. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow your mercy even upon them. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, there are two kinds of devotees. Right. What are these devotees? There are Sakama Bhakta and there are the Shuddha Bhakta. So the Sakama Bhakta means they will aspire for some material enjoyment, material happiness. So in exchange of devotional service. And there are four types of them. Artho, Jigyasur, Artharthi, Jnani cha Bharatarshava. When somebody is in distress, Artho, Jigyasu, somebody who is inquisitive, Artharthi, in need of money, and Jnani, in knowledge. So all these personalities, they surrender unto the Supreme Lord. Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukrutinor artho jidnyasurartharthi jnani cha bharatarshava. But the Lord said, Tesham jnanim nityukta. Amongst them, others, they may just fulfill their desire and may go away from devotional service. Further, Prabhupada writes here that the material pleasures, they are distinct and they are attained by anybody and everybody, even the hogs and the dogs. Right. And therefore, to waste the human form of life simply for the attainment of the material pleasure is not a very good idea. Prabhupada says many times, the modern yogis, they talk about, because the Lord has given you the senses, you should enjoy them fully. That is their idea. And Prabhupada says, but this idea is not very appreciated by Kardava Muni here. Because you are given the senses, you should employ them in the service of the Lord. That is the real idea. Prabhupada says, but the Lord is so kind, even to such yogis, he will give their own pleasures and want to make them that try this satisfaction if you can be happy. And this is how, this is the kindness of the Supreme Lord. Hellish and the demoniac persons do not actually know what is the ultimate attainment of perfection. Their idea doesn't go beyond the body. They think they are the body. And what to do with the body? Till the time it is young, try to enjoy the body as much as possible. And therefore, they try to squeeze out maximum happiness out of their own body and other bodies, because their intelligence has not gone beyond the bodily conception of life. They think the sense gratification is the highest goal of life, and therefore they are called as Hatamedasaha. They aspire only and only for material enjoyment, even at the cost of the yoga. Right. Prabhupada used to give the story. One day, one old lady, she was walking with a huge load of wood on her back, on her shoulder. And, the Lord became very compassionate and he appeared in front of her. And he said, my dear lady, what should I do for you? The lady could have asked anything to the Supreme Lord. She said, no, sir, this shoulder is paining. The left shoulder is paining because of carrying the load. Please shift my load from the left shoulder to the right shoulder. This is the unfortunate condition of those who come to the right path of self-realization and aspire for something lesser than pure devotional service or some material happiness, which is very trivial and momentary pleasure of the senses. Eventually, body will be finished. Eventually, all the happiness will be finished. Right? We have seen that every happiness that we have comes to an end. So, and further Prabhupada writes, Lord is so kind that even today, those people who approach the Supreme Lord with whatever mentality, Lord will give them the results accordingly. Ye yathamam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. So here, Kardama Muni is glorifying the Supreme Lord, that you are very kind, my dear Lord. Although people can attain anything and everything by attaining you, but whatever paltry desires they have, you are kind enough to fulfill even those desires. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank you, everyone.
Clarification.
Hare Krishna.
Hello.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
No, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Leela Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I have one question.
Yeah.
Is a Patanjali is a process or is Rishi's name?
Yeah, Patanjali is the Rishi's name, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and the process he gives is Ashtanga Marga, of which two are prominent, this Yama, Niyama, Pranayam, Asana. So people think Patanjali means Yogasana, but Patanjali means Ashtanga Marga, and these two, Pranayam and Yogasana, they are just two aspects of this Ashtanga Marga.
Thank you.
Yes, Leela Prabhu.
Prabhu, just a small clarification here in the text 13. It says Rishir Uvacha. It doesn't say Kardama Uvacha. Any specific reason? Like generally they go by names unless they're plural.
Yeah, means not very, very specifically. Rishi Uvacha, because he's a great sage, Kardama Muni himself, and that's why Rishi Uvacha.
Okay. So, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.